For centuries, the galaxy had forgotten about humans. The alien empires told stories of them only in whispers, as if speaking their name too loudly would wake an old nightmare. Children of other species grew up hearing tales about how humans once built ships so large that they blotted out the stars, how they fought wars with a kind of madness no one else could understand, and how they refused to kneel, no matter the odds. But those were old stories. Humanity had disappeared, their colonies burned, their fleets broken, their homeworld silent. Most believed they were extinct, and yet something stirred. It began as a faint signal, barely noticed at first, deep on the edge of known space. Patrol ships recorded it but dismissed it as background noise. Then the signal grew stronger. It pulsed, with a rhythm no machine or natural force could explain. A coded heartbeat. Ancient, steady human. On a dead moon orbiting in the shadow of a gas giant, something massive began to wake. Dust lifted in clouds as ancient systems flickered with life. Metal groaned, as if a sleeping giant was stretching after a long slumber. The structure was so large that it covered half the horizon. At first glance it seemed like part of the moon itself, but as lights began to glow across its hull, the truth became undeniable. It was not a rock. It was not a ruin. It was a ship. Not just any ship, but a human supercarrier. Its black surface gleamed as it shook off centuries of silence. Green lights burned to life along its sides, shining like eyes opening in the dark. The ship was old, older than any alien vessel still flying. But it looked strong, terrifyingly strong, as if it had been built to endure not just time, but eternity itself. Far away, alien outposts caught the readings. At first, they doubted their senses. A supercarrier? That was impossible. Humanity had no fleet left. But the data repeated again and again, undeniable. Something enormous had powered up in the forgotten corner of the galaxy. Messages spread like wildfire across the stars. Commanders called emergency meetings. Admirals shouted across war councils. The younger races did not understand, but the older ones did. They remembered. They remembered what it meant when humans brought out their supercarriers. Those ships were not weapons of war. They were symbols of finality. When a supercarrier appeared, it meant the end, and now one of them had returned. Inside the ship, systems hummed louder. Weapons remained quiet, but the aura of power was impossible to ignore. The supercarrier slowly lifted from the moon's surface, its colossal shadow swallowing the craters below. With a slow, graceful movement, it drifted into open space. From the bridge of a nearby alien scout ship, the crew froze. The ship filled their viewports. It was like watching a god step out of legend. One alien whispered, his voice trembling, "It cannot be human. They are gone." But the ship said otherwise. It moved without hesitation, steady and calm, like a predator that knew it had no equal. The scout ship sent out distress calls, warning nearby fleets. Within hours, dozens of alien warships began to gather at the edge of the system. Their commanders wanted answers. Some spoke of attacking at once, to destroy the human relic before it could become a threat. But no one dared to fire, because deep inside, every admiral, every captain, every soldier knew the truth. If this was truly a human supercarrier, then it could not be stopped. The silence of the ship was more terrifying than any weapon. It did not need to shoot. Its presence was enough, and as the alien fleets held their breath, the supercarrier turned slowly, its green-lit windows shining against the darkness. The ship aligned itself not toward them, but toward the heart of the galaxy, toward the empires that had once mocked humanity's fall. The question was not if it would strike. The question was why it had awakened now. Was it a warning? Was it revenge? Or had humanity returned for something greater, something the galaxy could not yet imagine? The silence stretched, heavier than the weight of planets. Alien crews whispered prayers. Admirals stared at their screens, sweat running down their brows. Every second felt like an eternity, and then across the void, a single message pulsed from the carrier's core. It was not words. Not yet, it was only a sound. A heartbeat, a human heartbeat. The galaxy froze. The signal of the human supercarrier spread like fire across the galaxy. Every listening post, every outpost, every warship caught its echo. No one wanted to believe it, but the data could not be denied. The humans were not gone. Their greatest weapon had returned. In the chambers of alien governments, fear replaced reason. The high councils of the Veyrac swarmed with panic. The insectoid generals beat their wings nervously, their voices sharp and broken. One of them hissed, "It is only one ship. We must destroy it before others rise." But another reminded them of history. One human ship had often been enough. Far across the stars, the reptilian Zorathi lords debated in silence. Their leader slammed his claws on the table. "If it is human, then war has already been lost. We fight shadows, and shadows cannot be killed." None of his council dared to argue. They remembered their ancestors' defeat when facing human fleets centuries ago. Every empire, every race remembered something different. Some remembered human soldiers who never surrendered, who fought even when their ships burned. Others remembered human strategies so strange that no machine intelligence could predict them. And all remembered the stories of human supercarriers, giant cities of war, moving fortresses that carried entire battle groups within their hulls. The fear was not in the weapons. It was in the memory. On the borders of alien space, fleets gathered. Thousands of ships, armed and ready, surrounded the system where the supercarrier had awakened. The commanders told themselves they were prepared, but deep in their hearts, they were not. From the bridge of a Krath dreadnought, Admiral Serkan watched the supercarrier through the viewscreen. The human ship was still silent, drifting like a predator that chose not to strike. The alien crews whispered to one another, asking why the humans had returned now. Some believed it was vengeance, others believed it was conquest, and a few, in the darkest corners of their minds, wondered if this was only the first of many. The Admiral clenched his fists. His scanners showed no weapons fired, no fighters launched. The human ship had done nothing, and yet already half of the nearby fleets were moving back, retreating without orders. Fear spread faster than light. On dozens of worlds, ordinary citizens stared at the news. Images of the carrier filled every broadcast. Across crowded markets and silent temples, the same question echoed, "What will the humans do?" Merchants locked their doors. Priests prayed. Even warlords, who once laughed at human weakness, stayed awake through the night, their eyes fixed on the stars. It was not a war, not yet, but it felt like one, because the humans had returned, and no one knew what their silence meant. On the carrier itself, lights continued to glow across its hull. No one knew if humans were alive inside, or if the ship itself had become something greater, an intelligence, a relic with its own will. But the longer it remained quiet, the more the galaxy trembled. In council chambers, debates turned into shouting. Some demanded an immediate strike. Others begged for patience. No one agreed. Every moment of hesitation only gave the carrier more power. It did not need to fire. It did not need to move. The fear it created did the work of 1,000 fleets. Admiral Serkan finally spoke, his voice heavy with despair. "We face not a ship. We face a memory that does not die." And across the galaxy, that memory grew. The fleets arrived one by one, then by hundreds. Across the dark stretch of space, alien warships formed a ring around the human supercarrier. Their shapes were many: sleek hunters from the Veyrac, heavy dreadnoughts from the Krath, vast cruisers from the Zorathi, and even small ships from younger races eager to prove themselves. The sky was crowded with firepower, enough to destroy worlds. Yet none of them moved closer. They all waited. The supercarrier hung in silence, its black hull reflecting faint starlight, its glowing green lines burning against the dark void. It was alive, but it did not act. No weapons were raised, no fighters were launched, no demands were made. It simply existed, and that was enough to hold the galaxy hostage. Admirals shouted across encrypted channels, debating endlessly. "Strike now! Destroy it before it becomes a threat!" "No, hold your fire. If we shoot, it may awaken fully. We cannot let humans return. We must..." And then silence, not from the carrier but from the admirals themselves. Because each of them, deep in their memory, recalled the same lesson. The humans never fought wars the way others did. They did not need the first strike. They did not need the largest fleets. They only needed the right moment. And when it came, the galaxy bent. On the Krath flagship, Admiral Serkan stood on the command deck, his eyes fixed on the image of the human ship. His claws tapped against the armrest. He had fought in 3 major wars. He had faced empires rising and falling. But never had he felt such weight from a ship that had not fired once. "This is no battle," he whispered to his crew. "This is judgment." Around him his officers stared, afraid to breathe too loudly. The human carrier radiated power, not through violence, but through silence. The silence pressed on every ship, every soldier, every mind. Across the fleet lines, smaller ships began to drift back. Crews panicked. Some refused orders to move closer. The commanders could not control it. Discipline cracked under the invisible pressure of the human presence. The carrier's engines flared, not with aggression, but with a slow, calm movement. It shifted position slightly, turning its massive frame until it faced the gathered fleets. For a heartbeat, the galaxy froze. Every captain imagined the same thing. The first blast, the first fighter wave, the first annihilation, but nothing came. Instead, the carrier held its ground. It stared at them, silent and steady, as if daring them to make the first mistake. The message was clear without words: fire if you dare. If you do, you will learn again why humans are feared. In the command halls of distant worlds, rulers trembled. They wanted to show strength, but no one gave the order to attack. To shoot first would mean carrying the blame for awakening the storm. To wait meant living in fear. The galaxy chose fear, and so the fleets held their line, not moving forward, not falling apart. Trapped in a silent standoff with a ghost from humanity's past. It was then that the younger races began to whisper to one another, asking questions no elder wished to answer. Why do we fear them so much? What can one ship do? Are the stories true, that humans once fought the galaxy and won? The elders had no answers, only silence, because they knew. The carrier was proof, no words, no shots, only its presence. Yet already the galaxy was breaking, the standoff dragged on. Hours turned into days, and still the human supercarrier remained silent. Its colossal frame floated in the void, engines dimmed, green lines pulsing like a heartbeat. Across the stars, billions watched, waiting for the first strike that never came. On the bridge of alien warships, tension gnawed at every mind. Crews refused to sleep, afraid that the moment they closed their eyes, the carrier would unleash its fury. Generals barked orders with voices that shook. Commanders paced their decks, torn between fear and pride. They could not attack, yet they could not retreat. The galaxy was chained by the silence of one ship, and then it spoke. At first it was only a whisper, a faint signal carried on frequencies older than any modern fleet. The static crawled across every channel, slipping into every ship, every station, every world. Pilots gripped their consoles. Civilians froze in their homes. The signal was clear, strong, and undeniably human. The voice was calm. It carried no anger, no desperation. It was the voice of someone who knew they did not need to shout to be heard. "We have returned." 3 words, but they cracked across the galaxy like thunder. Admirals stood speechless. Council halls erupted into chaos. On worlds where humans had once fought, old veterans wept in silence. The voice continued. We watched. We waited, and in our absence, you believed the galaxy was yours. But deep inside, you remembered. You remembered the wars. You remembered the fire. You remembered us. Every word fell heavy, like a weight pressing on the chest of every being who heard it. On the Krath flagship, Admiral Serkan clenched his fists until his claws drew blood. He wanted to silence the voice, to cut the transmission, but he could not. None of them could. The signal was everywhere, unstoppable. "We need not prove our strength," the voice said. "You already know it. You have carried the fear of us for generations. We need not fight to remind you. You remember." The fleets surrounding the supercarrier began to falter. Captains gave orders to pull back. No shots were fired, yet the lines broke as though they had been shattered by missiles. The voice had done what weapons could not. On worlds far from the standoff, ordinary citizens felt the same fear. Mothers pulled their children close. Merchants shut their stalls. Priests fell to their knees, whispering prayers to gods long forgotten. Even species who had never faced humans in battle trembled, for if this was the reaction of the elder races, then what chance did they have? The Supercarrier's voice echoed again, "We do not seek destruction, but do not mistake our silence for weakness. Do not mistake our patience for surrender. We returned because the galaxy has forgotten the truth. And the truth is this: humanity endures. Humanity rises. Humanity remembers." A chilling pause followed. Ships across the galaxy went dark with fear. No one dared move, as if even the smallest action would draw the gaze of the carrier itself. And then, as suddenly as it began, the message ended. The carrier's lights dimmed, its engines hummed softly, and it fell silent once more. But the damage had already been done. Governments collapsed into panic. Councils accused each other of weakness. Alliances shattered overnight. Species that had sworn loyalty to galactic powers broke away, fearing the humans would strike and drag them into war. Entire sectors plunged into chaos, not because of lasers or bombs, but because of words. On the Krath flagship, Admiral Serkan whispered the truth none of them wanted to say aloud. It has already won, and he was right. The human supercarrier had not fired a single shot, yet the galaxy was breaking under the weight of its return. The human supercarrier drifted in silence once again. No weapons fired, no fleets moved against it, and yet the galaxy was no longer the same. The single message had spread across every star system, echoing in the minds of billions. Humanity had returned, and that truth was enough to tear the galaxy apart. On the council world of the Veyrak, panic ruled the chambers. Generals screamed at one another, wings clashing as orders were shouted and then undone. One demanded a strike fleet be launched at once. Another insisted they retreat and seal their borders. No one agreed. Their empire cracked not because of war, but because fear left them unable to choose. Among the Zorathi, the reptilian lords turned on each other. Some wished to ally with the humans before it was too late. Others wanted to prepare for total war. Old rivalries ignited into open conflict. Fleets that once defended their borders now fought each other, convinced the humans would choose sides. The carrier did nothing, but whole regions of space burned in civil wars sparked by its silence. Even smaller species, those who had no power, began to act. Colonies that had once bowed to stronger empires suddenly declared independence. They said they would wait for humans to come and protect them. For the first time in centuries, weak civilizations dared to rise, simply because the fear of humans kept their conquerors away. The galaxy fractured like glass. On the edge of the standoff, Admiral Serkan sat in the darkened bridge of his dreadnought. His fleets had not been destroyed, but they were gone all the same. Captains had fled without permission. Entire squadrons had broken formation. Some ships turned their weapons inward, too afraid to face the supercarrier's shadow. And all the while, the human ship remained silent. It was not the silence of weakness. It was the silence of choice. It could act, but it did not need to. The galaxy was destroying itself without a single human shot fired. On the news broadcasts of neutral worlds, analysts tried to explain what was happening. They compared maps of alliances before the supercarrier's awakening and after. Borders shifted overnight. Trade routes collapsed. Armies abandoned their posts. No weapon in history had caused such destruction. No warlord, no empire, no invincible fleet. Only a single human ship. Citizens whispered to each other in fear. Some believed more carriers were waiting to rise. Some believed the humans themselves would soon return in flesh and blood. Others thought the carrier was not just a ship anymore, that it had become a machine spirit, a guardian of a race that refused to die. In truth, no one knew, but no one dared to test it. On the fourth day of silence, the carrier moved again. Slowly, with engines burning a soft green, it turned away from the fleets and drifted toward open space. Not a retreat, not an escape, but a declaration. It did not care for their weapons. It did not see them as threats. It had chosen its own path. The alien fleets, armed with more firepower than the galaxy had ever gathered in one place, let it go. None pursued, none fired. They simply watched, knowing that if even one ship acted against it, the entire galaxy would pay the price. And so the human supercarrier left, vanishing into the darkness between stars, leaving nothing behind but terror. Yet its absence did not heal the galaxy. The damage was permanent. The fear lingered like poison. Empires distrusted each other more than ever. Old enemies sharpened their blades. No one slept soundly because all knew the truth. The humans had not been destroyed. They had only been waiting. On the silent bridge of his dreadnought, Admiral Serkin spoke the words that spread through every fleet, every council, every empire. Humanity does not need to fight. Humanity only needs to return. And that truth shattered the galaxy forever.